critical vote on immigration reform about an hour away. The battle, yeah, it's heating up, and now so are the goodies. Welcome, everyone. I'm Stuart Varney in for Neil Cavuto. This is your world. They need the votes, so now come the add-ons, goodies that have nothing to do with securing the border, like $1.5 billion for a youth jobs program. Another $100 million for travel and tourism inserted by Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada. And something they're calling the Crab Husker Kickback, designed to help Alaskan seafood processors by recruiting workers from outside the United States. To the Washington Examiner's Byron York, who's seen this all before. Byron, seems to me you can't pass anything these days without a payoff to a politician.
Well, it sure looks that way. These kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, they weren't part of the original Gang of Eight bill. And then you heard there was going to be this big new amendment by Senators Hoeven and Corker to make it much tougher on border security. So everybody's waiting for the border security amendment, and when it comes out, it's 1,200 pages long, and it contains, in addition to border security, all those things you just mentioned.
But isn't that the nature of politics these days? That you've got to show your constituents, you've got to show your state voters or your wherever, you've got to show them you are bringing home the bacon. So anything they pass, you've got to have something in it for this state, this constituency, or that constituency. That is the nature of modern politics.
If you look at this bill specifically, the measure that's designed to help the Alaska seafood industry attract more low-wage workers actually is designed to help Senator Lisa Murkowski, the Republican who's been a pretty early supporter of this bill. She's mostly been with the Gang of Eight, and this probably helps persuade her. That youth jobs program was the brainchild of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont. Now, he's been the only guy who's really been attacking this bill from the left, saying that it's going to reduce employment and lower the wages of low-skilled Americans. So all of a sudden, he gets a job program added to the bill.
What about, is that part of the $1.5 billion youth employment attachment to this?
That's exactly what it is. It cost $1.5 billion. It's basically a summer jobs program. It'll be spread all through the 50 states and will apply in 2014 and the summer of 2015. So it's actually something from the old American Jobs Act, which is basically President Obama's second stimulus act that never got passed. This was part of that Sanders wanted put into the immigration bill, and bingo, all of a sudden on Friday night, it's in.
All right, you're chucking all this money around. How many Republicans are going to say yes on this bill?
Well, probably quite a lot of them. There are a number of co-sponsors on this amendment that we're talking about, and when you add that to the 54 Democrats in the Senate, the 4 Republicans who are on the Gang of Eight, you get over 60 anyway. The question really is whether there'll be 60 votes needed to overcome a filibuster, or whether it'll be more than that, maybe 70. But it appears that unless something really dramatic happens, enough Republicans are on board that this will pass the Senate.
Just one more item. How do you get $100 million for travel and tourism into an immigration bill? What's that got to do with immigration?
You're the majority leader of the Senate. I think that's what happens. The travel industry obviously critical in Nevada, Senator Reid's home state. That's exactly how that happened. That's how these other things got tossed in. These things tend to happen at the last minute, and you heard Republicans, conservatives who oppose the bill, really getting angry on Friday night saying, look, we got 72 hours to read this bill. It's 1,200 pages long, and Senator Reid wants a vote by 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time Monday. Well, it's going to happen.
And this is how you get it. All right, Byron York, thank you very much indeed. The amendment being voted on today calls for the addition of 700 miles of fence and an extra 19,000 border agents. But critics claim it gives too much leeway to the Homeland Security Secretary on where that fence should be built. They point to comments like these.
Confident that the border is as secure as it's ever been.
The border is more secure now than it has been ever.
Well, that is worrying Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. He says the border is far from secure. Sheriff, they do say, the administration says, look, we've cut down border crossings dramatically. Are you saying that's not so?
Well, evidently they forget President Nixon when G. Gordon Liddy and I ran an Operation Intercept 1969, where the president said we're going to close that border for 2 weeks to send a message to Mexico. Actually, we searched every car, and I think we got one marijuana cigarette. So when the president speaks, not the bureaucracy of cabinet members, things can get done. So I don't know about Janet Napolitano having the full say, but there's checks and balances. You have Congress can oversee the operations, so it's not just one person that will make the decision.
But isn't, under this amendment, isn't it Homeland Secretary Janet Napolitano who says, yes, the border is closed, no, it's not closed? You're not happy with that. Would you prefer Congress to say, yes, it's closed, or no, it's not closed?
Well, I don't know if you can trust Congress either. I think 2 years ago they were going to put up fences. I still don't see any fences. But you have a big bureaucracy. You have many cabinet members that have an interest in that border, whether it's terrorism, drugs, or the economic problem. So it is a big problem. But one person should not make that decision. And if that person does, hey, let's fight it out and have Congress do something about it.
Could you seal a border that's 1,900 miles long? Could you seal it totally?
No. I've been fighting this problem for 50 years, working in Mexico on the border for many, many years. You will never secure the border. You want to put up more fences and sell more ladders to hop over. These guys are very, very innovative. You will never secure the border. And I'll tell you, to say that you're not going to enforce the illegal immigration laws in the interior and blame it on the border, that's just a cop-out. They do not want to lock up illegal immigrants in the country already. They want to give them amnesty. That's what all the border talk is about.
Have any senators contacted you directly for advice on what to do with this border?
No one has contacted me, including the president. I guess he doesn't like me. No, I'm the guy with all those years experience, many, many years in Mexico, at the border, as sheriff, but nobody has asked me my opinion, but that doesn't matter because I'll give it to the public anyway.
Okay, in 10 seconds, what would you do about this border?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I will do what we did when I was over there, use the Mexican Army, the federal police, work together and get it done. So we should send the Border Patrol or some military over there to help the president in Mexico to work together and get the job done if you're really serious about it.
All right, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, thanks as always for joining us, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's go to Wall Street. Stocks bouncing back a little after being down close to, 250 points. The Dow finished about 139, 140 down. The latest jitters centered on China's economy and worries that earnings profits over here not looking too rosy either. All this as interest rates continue to move up. To former Reagan economic advisor Art Laffer on how he sees things playing out here. That's what our viewers want to know, Art. Should they be really worried about the beginning of a really big slide?
I don't really think so, Stuart. I mean, I think the markets look fine to me. You've had a couple of really big down days, but for the year as a whole, we're up substantially. The TIPS yield, the Treasury Inflation Protected Security Yield, which is really the forecast of what will be, it's the expected real return on a unit of capital over the next 10 years. That's up well over 100 basis points, which is really very good news. And government spending as a share of GDP is way down.
All right.
It's collapsing, and that's just great news to me.
So now you're reassuring stock market investors. Okay, well, what about those people who are looking closely at interest rates, specifically home buyers? They're expecting, I think the general consensus is, they're expecting mortgage rates to shoot up to maybe 4.5% real fast. What do you say to them?
Well, I think they're right. I mean, I think mortgage rates should be a lot higher, and I think they're going to rise a great deal. I mean, there's no way you should have a T-bill yield of 4 basis points. It's just ridiculous. And that you should have a 10-year bond yield of what, 250, 255? I mean, that's way, way, way too low for long term. You know, if the Fed's done that, and it's got to stop.
Won't it damage the housing recovery if you suddenly get a nice, not a nice, but a spike in mortgage rates?
Well, do remember that it's not only what you can borrow at, but it's also what people get paid for lending. It's both sides of the equation. And, you know, when market rates are held way below where they should be, people will find a way of denying home buyers the mortgages. Now, people who have full, complete credit, yes, they'll get less, they'll get higher interest rates. But those people who couldn't buy before because of whatever conditions, they won't be able to buy houses if you keep rates low. You'll find all sorts of regulators and all sorts of conditions for getting a mortgage that they won't satisfy, and they won't get it.
I hear a lot of talk that old Ben, you know, he's looking at what's going on in the markets,
Sure.
all this
Right.
plummeting stock prices, rising interest rates, and that he will bend to the pressure. He'll say something like, I'm not going to cut off the printing presses entirely. No, relax, boys. You don't think he'll say something like that?
Well, he may. God knows what he'll do, to be honest with you. It's been 5 years of this nonsense. And have you seen how wonderfully the housing market is doing? It's doing very poorly still. 5 years of almost zero interest rates, and it's still a terrible, terrible housing market. If you'd had nothing to do with anything, if they'd left it all alone, if there had been no stimulus funds, no QE1, no QE2, none of that stuff, we'd be back in a full boom. This has been the worst recovery ever, Stuart, because of what Bernanke and because of what the Republican as well as the Democratic administrations did with stimulus spending. It's ridiculous. You can't tax an economy into prosperity, nor can a poor person spend himself into wealth. It doesn't happen that way.
We hear it. Art Laffer, thank you as always.
Thank you, Stuart.